Want to thank you all for being here. She comes with her own, side people. So almost 100 people came with today. So thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon. Oh boy, everybody thought they had it worse, and look at me, who I have to follow. Ooh, you are so not right. My name is Teresa Vega, and I am going to simply read the Thompson King, not King Thompson, Thompson King. Thomas Thompson was my fourth great-grandfather. His daughter, Mary, was married to Jacob D. King, whose Underground Railroad house is right here. Facts matter. I'm going to read the resolutions today, Thompson King resolutions, the way my ancestors read them, starting, we know, as early as 1841 in the Colored American. Resolved that Frederick Douglass was our prophet of freedom, who became the collective voice of our people all over this great nation. Resolved that Newark, New Jersey was an epicenter of abolitionism, and that there was already a long-established community of black activists here that was ready to greet Frederick Douglass when he arrived on April 17th, 1849. And I'm going to call the names: Thompson, King, O'Fakes, the Rays, the Dreydens, the Tenbrooks, the Wheelers, and I can go on and on. Our folks have always been here. Resolved that the Thompson King family, a family of African native descent with roots in New Jersey going back over 400 years, was Newark's born and bred early abolitionists, who were among the original foot soldiers of freedom who institutionalized what became known as the Underground Railroad throughout the Northeast. Because they were the descendants of people who survived. We are survivors of the triple horror of genocide, colonization, and slavery. Resistance has always been part of our DNA. It has always been part of our family history, and it will continue to be part of our family history. Resolved that Frederick Douglass had a 50-year personal relationship with our ancestors. And when I say a personal relationship, I mean through intermarriage with his descendants. I'm talking about our Ware ancestors in Buffalo wrote for the North Star. I'm talking about a lot of our ancestors were United States colored troops. Some served with his sons in the 54th Glory Regiment. They attended the colored conventions from Jump Street. Our folks knew the man himself. And on this day, those of us who are here, the living descendants of the Thompson King family, look to reestablish and reaffirm the historic ties that bound our abolitionist families together in the past with the living descendants of Frederick Douglass on this auspicious day. Finally, the last resolution is not my own, but it's that of my first cousin 6 times removed. That's how I refer. And that is our very own Reverend Dr. Charles Henry Thompson, who was one of the ministers of, we called it the Colored Presbyterian Church, for 11 years. Facts matter. Prior to him becoming the minister at the Colored Presbyterian Church here, he was the minister of the Shiloh Presbyterian Church in Manhattan, the Siloam Presbyterian Church in Brooklyn. And prior to that, he was one of the first black graduates of Oberlin College. He was a student supported by Reverend Simeon Jocelyn, one of the original lawyers who represented the Amistad captives and founded the American Missionary Association, an abolitionist group. After he left Newark, Dr. Thompson went south during Reconstruction along with Jacob D. King's daughter, Harriet King Brown, who was one of the first school teachers in the colored school. And he taught at several HBCUs and continued to minister his flocks. The colored school where Jacob D. King's brother, Reverend John A. King, along with his other brother, Abraham Ogden King, that school was founded in 1828. officially. But unofficially, it started back in 1822 when our folks founded not only the AME Zion Church right here, but later on in the 1836, they were one of the founding members of the Colored Presbyterian Church. Facts matter. In 1822, once the AME Zion Church was founded, our folks left the Presbyterian Church and went. Both churches were freedom churches. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that on April 20th, 1870, think 3 days from now, Black Newark gathered in Lincoln Park, Boston in the house, and held the Negro Jubilee, an event that celebrated the ratification of the 15th Amendment in New Jersey. And that event can be considered the last 1st of August celebration that our ancestors helped to organize in Newark. For the record, our ancestors had the right to vote after the Revolutionary War, but it was taken away from all people of color and women in 1807. When our Reverend Thompson finally addressed the crowd back then in 1870, he made several resolutions that seemed, operative word, to end a 63-year-old battle. However, we all know the battle for voting rights continues today. The battle over mixed status families at the border continues today. Our prophet of freedom, Frederick Douglass, often said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. So let us continue the struggle. Let us continue being new abolitionists today. I now leave you with Reverend Thompson's last resolution that was so full of Black patriotic hope. And let's be clear, it is people of color who always have been the most patriotic Americans who have forced this country to live up to its creed, that all people were created equal. Facts matter. His words still have meaning. They still resonate today. And our ancestor, my cousin, homie, friend, first cousin, 5 times removed, said, resolved that in this our day of triumph, we look back upon the past with malice towards none, with charity for all, that we regard the present as a day of rejoicing and of preparation, and that we move onward to the future with a full determination to do our whole duty to the land whose interests are now our interests, and with whose destiny we are now and forever linked. I'm going to ask my homies, my relatives in the Thompson King section to now stand. And I have to remind them. Now I'm going to be clear. All of you stand in that section. Some of you still sitting. Now I have to remind them, they already heard this speech, so I'm going to remind everybody here. You may see one of me, but I walk with millions. There is a fundamental belief that we have in our family, that there is no separation between those who live on high in the place where the sun never sets and those of us living, standing here today. Our ancestors are with us wherever we go. We remain their voices on this earth. I know without a shadow of a doubt that early this morning, our ancestors got up and said, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. I know without a shadow of the doubt, our ancestor angels flew over to the Douglass mansion early this morning and said, this is the day they're remembering us all. We got to see this. So on the count of 3, don't embarrass me and they're watching you, they're right here. Okay, on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's make some noise and welcome to Newark, the Douglass family. I want to thank the Chancellor, Chancellor Cantor, Chancellor Masha Brown, and others in the office of the Chancellor for inviting myself and our family to represent. We've been representing Newark a long time now. We're still here. And there's so much more work that we have to do to bring Newark and center Newark back in its rightful historic place as an epicenter of abolitionism. Thank you.
We will now have a reenactment from a young person, because we always need them to keep us honest sometimes. We will have a reading of what Mayor Baraka referred to earlier, of what to the slave is the 4th of July. Contrary to popular belief, Frederick Douglass gave the speech on July 5th, not the 4th, right? In Corinthian Hall, Rochester, New York, addressing the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. People also forget that as well. This speech will be delivered by Marlon Campbell. Marlon, you're going to do great. Marlon Campbell is a senior here at Rutgers University, Newark, with a concentration in journalism, media studies, and a minor in theater. After a stellar high school performance, Marlon came to Rutgers Newark through the EOF program. Woo! We believe in EOF. As a first-generation college student, throughout his life, Marlon has been an advocate for public policy designed to eradicate physical abuse, homelessness, and poverty. Marlon, the floor is yours. Please join me.
I don't know how to follow that, but I'll try. Fellow citizens, I am not wanting in respect for the fathers of this republic. The signers of the Declaration of Independence were brave men. They were great men, great enough to bring frame to a great age. It does not often happen to a nation to raise, at one time, such a number of truly great men. The point from which I am compelled to view them is not certainly the most favorable, and yet I cannot contemplate their great deeds with less than admiration. They were statesmen, patriots, heroes, and for the good they did and the principles they contended for, I will unite with you to honor their memory. Fellow citizens, part of me, allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of national justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude of the blessings resulting from your independence to us? Would to God, for both your sake and ours, that an affirmative answer could truthfully be returned to these questions. Then would my task be light and my burden be easy and delightful? For who there is so cold that a nation's sympathy could not warm him? The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought light and healing to you brought stripes and death to me. Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reached them. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. There is not a man beneath the canopy of heaven that does not know that slavery is wrong for him. What, am I to argue that it is wrong to make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work them without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow man, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with iron, to hunt them with dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters? Must I argue that a system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? No, I will not. What then remains to be argued? Is it that slavery is not divine? That God did not establish it? That which is inhuman cannot be divine. Who can such reason on such a proposition? That they that can may, I cannot. The time for such argument is past. What to the American slave is the 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license, your national greatness, swelling vanity, your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers, your hymns, your sermons, your thanksgivings are to him mere fraud, deception, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Indeed, America reigns with our arrival. So at a time like this, the feeling of a nation must be quickened, the conscience of a nation must be roused, the propriety of a nation must be startled, the hypocrisy of a nation must be exposed, and its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced. Yet, notwithstanding the dark picture I have presented on this day of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. The arm of the Lord is not shortened, and the doom of slavery is certain. I therefore, in conclusion, leave off where I began with hope, drawing encouragement from the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions. Godspeed the day when human blood shall cease to flow. In every clime be understood the claims of human brotherhood. Thank you.